begins in a quiet hospital hallway where time feels strangely suspended, as if the world outside has kept moving while everything inside that room froze the moment Emily slipped into a coma. The fluorescent lights flicker softly, casting a pale glow over the walls, and the only sound is the steady rhythm of machines that have become the heartbeat Emily can't give herself. At just 16, she lies motionless, her dark hair spread across the pillow like a memory of the life she had before the accident. Doctors come and go with the same gentle but worried expression, speaking in low tones that carry a weight nobody wants to acknowledge. They tell the family that recovery is unlikely and that even small improvements would be a miracle. But her older sister Mia refuses to accept any final answer that doesn't include Emily waking up again. Every morning, she arrives with her backpack full of notebooks, snacks, and a cheap little Bluetooth speaker. She stays until late at night, leaving only when the nurses insist she get some sleep. Her routine is simple: she holds Emily's hand, prays softly, and sings the worship songs they grew up with. There is something raw and almost electric about the way Mia sings. Her voice trembles, sometimes breaking mid-chorus when emotion overwhelms her, but she never stops. Nurses often slow their steps when passing the room, drawn in by the mix of sadness and hope radiating from her voice. Even the doctors, normally hardened by years of tragedies and recoveries, pause to listen. They can't explain why Mia's presence feels different, but there is no denying the warmth in the room whenever she sings. Despite the machines, cold beeping, something in the air feels alive. Mia believes Emily can hear her, somewhere deep inside the darkness she's trapped in. She whispers stories from their childhood, jokes about random things to keep the atmosphere light, and then returns to singing, her voice floating through the stillness like a prayer wrapped in melody. Each night, when she finally leaves, she leans close and whispers, "I'll be back tomorrow, Emmy. Keep fighting." That promise fuels her as she steps out into the night, exhausted but unbroken. Episode 2 begins with a sunset glow slipping through the blinds, bathing the room in warm light that softens the tense lines on everyone's faces. Mia takes her usual seat beside Emily, her voice already worn from a long week of singing, but she refuses to rest. She turns on the speaker and plays Emily's favorite gospel song, the one they used to belt out in the car while their mom laughed at them from the driver's seat. As soon as the intro fills the room, Mia starts singing, pouring every ounce of love and desperation into the words. Her hands tremble as she grips Emily's fingers, and a tear slides down her cheek, landing on the blanket. She closes her eyes and prays between lyrics, asking God for even the smallest sign that her sister is still in there somewhere. The room feels heavier than usual, like the air is waiting for something to happen. Then it does. Mia notices a tiny movement, so small she almost thinks she imagined it. Emily's finger twitches once, then again, this time with unmistakable intention. Mia freezes, staring at her sister's hand as her breath catches in her throat. She calls the nurse, her voice shaking, but she doesn't stop singing. The nurse rushes in, eyes widening, and calls for the doctor. Within seconds, the quiet room becomes a flurry of movement as medical staff gather around the bed, checking vitals, shining small lights, murmuring in disbelief. Mia keeps singing, tears streaming down her face as she realizes she's witnessing something extraordinary. Emily's eyelids flutter for the briefest moment, like a whisper from a distant place. The doctors exchange stunned looks, unable to explain it. But Mia doesn't need an explanation. She feels it deep in her chest. Her sister heard her, and something inside Emily is fighting its way back toward the light. The miracle she's been praying for is beginning to wake. The miracle spread through the hospital faster than anyone expected. Nurses whispered about it at the station, doctors discussed it in the hallways, and even visitors who didn't know the family stopped to ask if the rumors were true. People said a 16-year-old girl in a coma had moved for the first time in weeks after her sister sang a worship song beside her bed. No one could explain it medically, but everyone felt something shift in the air that day. It was as if hope, which had been fading slowly, suddenly returned with full force. Mia came in the next morning holding a small portable speaker, ready to play Emily's favorite songs again. She didn't even notice the crowd forming outside the door. Other families with their own battles, other patients searching for inspiration, nurses who had seen too much loss and not enough miracles. When she started singing softly, everyone became silent. Her voice was gentle, shaky at times from exhaustion, but filled with a kind of faith that made people stop in their tracks. And then it happened again. Emily's eyelids fluttered. A tiny tear rolled down the corner of her eye. The room erupted into quiet gasps. Mia froze mid-song, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. She leaned in, whispering, I'm here. Keep fighting. I'm right here. Doctors came in quickly, checking her vitals, shining lights in her eyes, calling her name firmly but gently. They were careful not to give false hope, but there was no denying it now. Emily was responding. Little movements, little flickers of consciousness, all happening when Mia sang. One doctor said he had never seen anything like it in 20 years. Another nurse admitted she had cried in her car after watching Mia sing because it reminded her why she became a nurse in the first place. Day after day, Emily continued showing signs of awakening. A twitch of her hand when Mia squeezed it, a subtle shift in her breathing when a certain song played, a faint tightening of her jaw when Mia prayed over her. It was like watching someone slowly swim upward through deep water, getting closer to the surface with each note of her sister's voice. By now the story had left the hospital. Someone had recorded a small clip of Emily's fingers moving as Mia sang, and within hours it was circulating online. Families shared it with captions like, "Faith is real, a miracle in modern times," and "Proof that prayer works." It reached churches, support groups, and eventually celebrity feeds. And among the millions who watched the clip was Simon Cowell, who was known for his tough exterior and blunt critiques but also had a soft spot for powerful, emotional stories. He reposted the video, writing that he had watched it multiple times and that it brought him to tears. He said the moment reminded him of the power of music and the strength of love, and those words alone sent the internet into a frenzy. Mia didn't even know at first. She wasn't online much. Her world revolved around the hospital room, the sound of the machines, and the quiet hope that kept her going. When a nurse finally showed her, she couldn't believe it. But fame didn't matter to her. What mattered was sitting beside Emily, holding her hand, and singing until her voice cracked. She didn't care how many people watched the video or commented on it. She cared that her sister was fighting, that God was listening, and that every day Emily seemed a little closer to waking up. The hospital hallway felt different now. People walked by with more optimism. Some even asked Mia to pray for their own loved ones. They saw her as the girl who brought life back into a room that had once felt hopeless. But Mia saw herself as simply a sister who refused to stop loving, singing, or believing. And as more days passed, the miracle continued to grow. Emily wasn't awake yet, but she was coming back, inch by inch, breath by breath, song by song. The world was watching, but for Mia, this was still deeply personal. It was her heart calling out to her sister, and her sister calling back in the only way she could. Emily's first conscious moments were fragile and delicate, like the flutter of a butterfly's wings. After weeks in a coma, the once motionless girl slowly began to move her fingers and then her arms. Her family had been waiting for any sign, and now, the small but undeniable movements filled the hospital room with an electric mixture of hope and disbelief. Mia, her older sister, who had been by her side day and night, held Emily's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. She whispered words of encouragement and love, telling Emily how much she had been missed, how everyone had prayed for her, and how she had never stopped singing for her. Each word seemed to reach Emily, and her eyes fluttered open just enough to catch the glimmer of recognition. The room, usually filled with machines and the sterile smell of antiseptic, was suddenly vibrant with life and raw emotion. Nurses and doctors, who had been cautiously optimistic, now exchanged looks of astonishment. This was a milestone none had dared to hope for so soon, a sign that the bond between the sisters, paired with unwavering faith, was more powerful than anyone could imagine. Even Emily's tiny whisper, "I heard you singing," carried a weight of triumph and relief that brought everyone to tears. It was not just a physical awakening, but a spiritual moment, a testament to the power of love and prayer. The staff immediately began adjusting her care, celebrating this monumental progress while still cautiously monitoring her fragile state. Family members, who had been waiting outside the hospital in tense anticipation, were invited in. They hugged, cried, and laughed all at once, overwhelmed by the miracle that had just unfolded before their eyes. Every day after that became a step forward, however small, each movement and sound a victory. Emily's recovery was slow but steady. She began following objects with her eyes, responding to voices, and gradually regaining strength in her limbs. Physical therapy became a critical part of her routine, helping her rebuild the strength she had lost while she was unconscious. Mia continued to sing to her, and with every note, Emily seemed to respond more, a subtle smile or a gentle squeeze of her sister's hand. The family's home, once filled with fear and despair, now echoed with laughter, music, and hope. Doctors documented every progress carefully, amazed at the rapid improvement. Emily's story began spreading beyond the hospital, reaching social media platforms and local news outlets. People were inspired, sharing their own prayers and stories, creating a wave of support that further strengthened the family's resolve. Weeks turned into months, and Emily's strength continued to grow. She began speaking in short sentences, her voice weak but full of emotion. The family celebrated each word, each step, each tiny gesture of independence. It was as if the entire universe had conspired to give Emily a second chance, and her resilience was a reflection of the love and faith that surrounded her. Simon Cowell, who had followed the story closely, personally reached out to Mia and Emily, inviting them to a special appearance to share their incredible journey. On stage, Mia performed the same song she had sung in the hospital, her voice filled with emotion and conviction. The audience was captivated, many wiping away tears as they listened to the tale of hope, faith, and miraculous recovery. Emily watched from home, her heart swelling with gratitude, knowing that every note of her sister's song had played a part in bringing her back. The experience inspired countless people, reinforcing the belief that miracles are possible, love can heal, and faith can overcome even the darkest moments. Their story was not just about Emily waking from a coma, but about the transformative power of devotion, the strength of familial bonds, and the undeniable impact of hope. It was a reminder that even when circumstances seem impossible, persistence, prayer, and unwavering love can bring life back into the most fragile of hearts.